Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over.
Hey folks, we have a great show for you today. So Joe Biden sat down with 60 Minutes and gave a very Joe Biden-esque interview, downplaying inflation, making remarks about China and Taiwan that his staff seems to be walking back, and yes, even saying this.
The pandemic is over.
We're going to watch the full clip in a second, but I just want to show you some responses. Congressman Thomas Massie said if the pandemic is over, as Biden says, then all of the president's emergency powers predicated on a pandemic, all COVID vax mandates, the emergency powers of every governor, emergency use authorizations, and the PrEP Act should all be voided tomorrow. Once again, for the loser fact checkers on Facebook and YouTube, I'm reading a congressman's tweet, so don't get your butt plugs all up in a bunch, okay? 850 more unvaccinated workers in New York City were fired for not complying with the mandate, and then Biden says this just a day or two later.
The pandemic is over.
Thomas Massie also said 85% of nurses are female. Biden's vax mandate for healthcare workers has forced many from the workplace. 75% of teachers are women. New York City has terminated almost 2,000 of them over the vax mandate. Stop the war on women of childbearing age and the ridiculous vax mandates. I guess Democrats only believe in freedom of choice for black people and women if they're aborting their would-be future kid. Jack Pasabic jokes, if the pandemic is over, we can end universal mail-in voting immediately. Thanks, Joe Biden. And before I start my live stream, I just want to play this Instagram and TikTok that I made to cover Joe Biden's statement.
Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. And so I think it's changing, and I think this is a perfect example of it.
Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida asks, Biden declared the pandemic is over, so when will he let those discharged from the military due to vax mandates return to protecting our country? Just 2 days ago, 850 more unvaxxed New York City teachers, aides were fired for not complying with mandate. Are we ever going to stop demonizing, dehumanizing, and banishing people who opted out of these big pharma injections? Both parties are corrupt and both parties suck. But for sure, the Democrats have taken a more bullish stance on business closures, lockdowns, forced masking, vaccine mandates, and normalizing this fear and paranoia culture under the guise of public health, while rarely mentioning diet, exercise, other toxins in the environment, schedule, routine, mental health, and all of these super important things to your health that they seemingly had no problem sacrificing as collateral damage to their big government, big pharma scheme. What do you think? It's going to be a great show. We're live now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining the live episode or the live show of the Dream Rare Podcast. I have a few things to weigh in on the intro, but real quick, I want to show you two articles I'm going to read for you. This is a real MSNBC article. I'm going to read it later. The Biden admin just handed out its first federal grant to dismantle a highway built to perpetuate racial discrimination. Biden administration announces steps for first major step to fight America's racist roads. Those darn racist roads, folks. Thank goodness Pete Buttigieg is fighting them. We're going to read that stupendous article. And then it's separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. So now separating sports by gender doesn't make sense. Guys, this is MSNBC.com on the first one. And the second one's The Atlantic. The Atlantic is supposed to be like this hipster, intellectual blog of scientists, doctors, and just the greatest liberal minds in the world. And they're like writing an op-ed about why, you shouldn't separate sports by gender. Sure, don't do it. I don't care. I'm not afraid of the competition. Good luck. First, I want to talk about Joe Biden said in the interview with 60 Minutes, the pandemic is over. I was reading the media room and a lot of media was upset. A lot of media was like, yeah, it's over, but whatever. And, just 2 days ago, New York is still firing unvaccinated workers. So I wonder how long this stuff's going to go on, if this is going to last forever, and what the public backlash is going to be on that. Here's what I want to say. And when it comes to politics, Ron DeSantis, I want to drive this point home because I want congressmen, senators, Republicans of all types, voters, whoever, to hear this message. Ron DeSantis wasn't that popular a couple years ago. Now Ron DeSantis is arguably neck and neck with Donald Trump. Some would say more popular, some would say less popular. But it's clear, outside of the Donald Trump sphere, DeSantis is like the next in line for sure, if not Trump. So why is he so popular? I want to get this message across. It's because he's filled a void that Donald Trump and most Republicans weren't doing. Thomas Massey's done a good job. Rand Paul's done okay. But really, most of the country is looking at lockdowns, mask mandates, vaccine mandates. Our whole world has changed. Beaches are closed. Parks are closed. And there was something weird that happened in the Democrat and Republican Party is people didn't seem to talk about it that much. Like there was all this talk and it didn't seem like it was a number 1, 2, 3, 4 issue. Like people are like, yeah, but it's almost like they don't even care about us. So Ron DeSantis came along and he made it his number 1 talking point. If you listen to a Ron DeSantis speech live, he'll make a talking point about it. Trump won't even mention it. The mandates, all this vaccine stuff. He's making it the big point because how could you not? I mean, it's like everything has changed in this country from going on cruises to leaving the country to going to work, testing, everything is different than it was 2 years ago. It's easily the biggest thing on most people's minds, if not top 2 or top 3, depending on other things. And for some reason, Democrats are shoving it down our throats and Republicans are just acting like it doesn't even exist for the most part. They're doing such a poor job messaging against it. So I just want to say, regardless of how you feel about Ron DeSantis, whether you love him, whether you're skeptical, the reason he went from here to here is because he filled this void that no one was filling. So if you want to be popular as a Republican, start addressing the elephant in the room, which is the mandates, the forced testing, the forced masking, and all of this crazy stuff that still has not left our countries, that still has not left major cities, that still has not left corporations. There's still certain rules on the books, even if governors are fighting against it. In certain states, we don't have the freedom. Even in Florida and Texas, there's still corporations working around and forcing things down people's throats and using jobs and, vacation time as leverage to try to force them to do this stuff. So in my personal perspective, you can't drain the swamp until you focus on big pharma. They've swallowed up our media. There's a reason, and I don't want to drone on too long, but there's a reason that I keep talking about big pharma and people say, well, Namali, you don't understand because Trump didn't mandate it and just leave it alone. No, I'm going to say that you don't understand if that's the type of person you are. You can agree to disagree, but Big Pharma in 2020, it said that they've bought 75% of media advertisement. Okay, if they're doing that under their own free will, they're just paying for it and, it's still a little unethical, but they got, the industry got $18 billion or so from Operation Warp Speed. So this isn't free market capitalism. The government is giving them money. The government is purchasing their product. The government is partnering with Moderna to do stuff. And then they have all this money. I mean, if I got $18 billion from the government, if they funneled money to me and bought my product with taxpayer money while everyone was locked down, I bet you that I would be able to do 75% advertising on television too. So it's not like free market capitalism. They're just buying up all the ads. They've swallowed up our government through lobbying. They've bought the Democratic Party. They've bought a lot of the Republican Party. They've bought most of the media. They're partnering with big tech. You can't drain the swamp in this country. You're not going to be set free. You're not going to fight the Great Reset while your party is ushering in a lot of their policies and then throwing their hands up and saying, well, we didn't mandate it though. But we didn't mandate it. Okay, but you did steps 1 through 14 and then the Democrats did 15 through 20 and you act like you didn't see it coming. We all saw it coming. So I'm really trying to drive this home because it's so important. Biden is now backtracking and there's a lot of momentum in our direction. A lot of people are tired of forced masking. A lot of people are tired of the testing. A lot of people eventually want to go back to normal. Even Biden saying the pandemic's over. So now more than ever for the midterms, Republicans should be making it clear. Guys, DeSantis went from here to here in a swing state, and he's probably going to win easily because he drove this point home unlike any other Republican. I don't know what the other Republicans are waiting for, why they're not making this the messaging. If I ran for office, I'd say, listen, hey, Democrats did this, Democrats did this, Democrats did this. Hey, if you're in Miami, you want to party, you're a Cuban, I don't care if you're liberal, whatever. You want to go out and be normal and be free and have fun and hang out with chicks, whatever. then I'm the guy for you. I'm not going to lock you in your house. I'm not going to force mask you. I'm not going to tell you, freedom. Freedom when it comes to medical tyranny. This message is like so big right now. I guarantee you, even people that don't vote and even people that vote Democrat, they're tired of all the shenanigans. So I just don't know why Republicans aren't making it a talking point. They're always like 3 steps behind, giving the Democrats the narrative and just trailing behind. But real quick before we end it, DeSantis is the one. He made it his main narrative. He went from relatively no name to just as popular as the most popular Republican. There's a reason, folks. It's not because he looks nice. It's not because he's young. There's other nice looking, people, men and women that, people would look up to. AOC. I mean, she's honestly kind of, her energy is very ugly. She could be a beautiful woman if she just didn't act like a pigeon all the time, but that's between her and her soul. Anyway, DeSantis isn't popular for any other reason besides the fact that he made this really important topic his main narrative while everyone else just sits in fair weather on it. And same with Thomas Massey. So, we have the momentum. It's time to really drive forward. Before I wrap it up and get to these stories I want to talk about, Biden also mentioned that he probably won't run. In my opinion, this is what it sounds like. You listen for yourself. It sounds like he's backtracking out of the 2024 election, which is creepy because I kind of want him to run. Not because I want him to win. I just think he sucks. So if he drops out and they put in like Gavin Newsom or Pete Buttigieg, I don't know. That's less ideal than Biden, in my opinion. Let's look.
I take it the decision has not been made in your own head.
Look, my intention, as I said to begin with, is that I would run again, but it's just an intention. But is it a firm decision that I run again? That remains to be seen.
Is it a firm decision that I run again? That remains to be seen, is what he said. To me, that sounds very unpromising. If you're one of the 7 people who actually likes Joe Biden, you're going to be sad. For the rest of the country, no one cares. But Trump, if he's in 2018, he's like, of course I'm going to run again. I'm going to make America great again or keep America great. Of course I'm going to run. Like most presidents are like, yeah, of course I'm running for re-election. Why wouldn't I? I'm the president. Biden saying he hasn't made the decision yet sounds like they're going to cart him out. He's too old. He's a goofball. People don't like him. And I think strategically it's a smart move for the Democrats because things are obviously not ideal right now. And if you can replace Joe Biden, that can be your, oh, look, we've made the change. Instead of people voting Republican, just vote for the other guy. That would be a smart move for Democrats. I hope they don't do it, but they probably will. If that's what he's saying, that's pretty weak and pretty pathetic. Speaking of weak and pathetic, Joe Biden made a bullish statement on Taiwan, the proxy war over there, saying basically, I don't want to mince his words, but something along the lines of if China did this, America would do this. And he acted all tough on 60 Minutes. And then the White House and some of his staff members are already walking back the statement. If you read some media, they're walking it back. Who's running the Biden administration? Listen, say what you want about Trump, but if he wanted to do something, he's pretty bullheaded about it. He's not like he was. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have certain people paying him or certain advisors and stuff, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure if Trump wanted to do something, he would at least try to do it or, talk to people and maybe make a decision. What's going on with the Biden administration that he's, I feel this way, and then his staff says the other. I'm pretty sure Trump would have fired them if they said that versus just, constantly walking back what the president's saying. It's so clear it's this weird Weekend at Bernie situation where he's just kind of the figurehead and probably younger and smarter people are actually running the administration. But I would say this to people that think that this is so unusual. The unusual part is that Biden's sloppy. The unusual part is that Biden walks around like he has dementia and looks like, I'm not even trying to be rude, although I don't like Joe Biden at all. He does remind me of somebody that has Alzheimer's or something. I'm not saying he does, but I had a grandpa who had Alzheimer's, and also when I was visiting my grandma in the hospital, just like that look they have when they walk around, he seems like he literally has the, early onset of dementia, and he's the president. It's very odd, but the point I was trying to get to is I think a lot of presidents have been puppets. I think a lot of presidents from George Bush to Barack Obama, they talk a big game, but there's really people like Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld and all these other people in the cabinet that seem to almost have more influence, and he's just kind of the, the media character. And with Obama, I'm pretty sure, although, he's not the most savory character to most Republicans, I don't think he was really calling all the shots either. So I think the positive that I could take out of this, I don't think it's really great, but Joe Biden is exposing what politics really is. Politics is not Barack Obama looking smooth. Politics is not George Bush acting like a Southerner just like you. Politics is not Donald Trump telling you he's going to drain the swamp. Politics is Joe Biden. It's that bad. You know, obviously it's that bad if he could get to the top position. So in a weird way, Trump was the most transparent president. He was the most honest, the most raw, the most off the cuff. In one way, Trump was by far the most transparent president we've ever had and probably ever will have. Hopefully things will change. But, you know, because he was speaking more truth, he was going off script and just saying things that everybody understood that wasn't like a little prepared statement. On another hand, I could argue that Biden's more transparent, not because he's honest, but he's transparent in the sense of like he's so sloppy and crappy that he's not able to mask the swamp behind him. And in a weird way, without trying to be, he is like showcasing like people are like, oh my God, this is the worst it's ever been. It's like, yeah, but it's been bad. It's just now it's like so bad. It's like if you have if you leave a dump in the toilet after, I mean, this is a gross example, I apologize, but after like 5 years, it starts to smell so bad you can't ignore it. You're like, yo, go get the plumber, dude. Like, what are you leaving it there for? It's like a porter potty. It's like, bro, clean that up. I feel like that's Joe Biden. It's been dookie for 30 years, but they've been trying to just, put it together. It's like, don't question 9/11, whatever. We'll go fight, Bashar al-Assad and bin Laden or something, or, maybe Gaddafi, or maybe we'll kill Saddam Hussein. I don't know. We're just going to go to the Middle East, but don't ask questions. And then it's like, now it just smells so bad. Everyone's like, yo, this is new. And it's like, the corruption's not new. The puppet being senile is new, and it being impossible for them to hide who's really running the show. Fascinating stuff, but let's see what happens. I really pray that more people come together and end all these mandates, the forced testing, the forced masking. I said it in the intro before I move on, but the psychological impact, I just read a tweet from a blue checkmark verified guy who said he just heard of a 17-year-old who killed themselves because they were depressed, and the depression started during the lockdown. The excess of suicides, opioid deaths, like obesity, other diseases when they closed down hospitals and elective surgeries, like domestic abuse, child abuse, just, ruining people's jobs, the economic damage, which leads to a lot of suffering. The amount of damage they did with lockdowns and all these mandates, it's so obvious. And I don't have all the money and the power in the world, but I just want to say to these idiot fact checkers who, by the way, I am going to expose. I'm working on the video. It's almost done. It looks like a documentary, guys. I'm really taking my time to expose the fact checkers and make a presentation to show the world how fake and dishonest they are, and how evil they are, and how big of liars they are, and how they're like authoritarians. You could make the argument that fact checkers have more power than a congressman. It's like a congressman can't even get their bill passed if they don't have a majority or like the right puppet and, at the lead of their party. But these fact checkers, who are they? Like how are they allowed to block the reach of like 100 million, like a reach of 100 million across like 50 channels? They're allowed to manipulate that, and they have like no oversight, or they're allowed to make mistakes. They're worse than Congress and they're worse than Senate, and I'm exposing them. But the point I'm trying to say is to the fact checkers, just wait to see my awesome video of showing how garbage you are. I don't have the technology or the position rather to do anything about it. But I will say, if you're watching this, like I know you stalk my videos because you emailed me and told me, shame on you. You're evil. You're horrible. The fact that you've been covering up for big pharma, big government, lockdowns, mandates, and trying to act like it's so amazing and punishing anybody who questioned it, just know you've had a net negative impact on the world, and karma is coming. And that's not a threat. That's just how the world works. What comes around goes around. We all have to deal with it. And I know that you guys probably suffer just inside every single night, knowing how much damage you caused, and knowing that you're on the side of people that are psychologically, mentally, economically just abusing normal citizens, and you just don't want to relinquish that power. So shame on you. And I mean all peace, all love, but I believe in the law of attraction. I believe in karma to a certain extent of what you call it, where everybody has to reap what they sow. And you guys, you might have the position at Facebook. You might be watching my videos just waiting to try to cancel my YouTube video after I put blood, sweat, and tears for 10, 15 years, working hard to be an independent, news reporter and hip hop artist, and you can maybe do that, but I hope you feel terrible about it because you guys are horrible people, and you guys played one of the most evil roles in modern history in a lockdown that led to childhood obesity, suicides, fentanyl, opioid overdoses, people getting, domestic abuse and child abuse, calls going up. I could list 50 collateral damages to all this stuff for what? For Biden to say the pandemic is over when the cases are still there? People are freaking out. Well, the cases are still there. It's not over. It's like, well, something's not going on because it was 15 days to slow the spread. They built up the Javits Center, the hospitals. Yeah, the goalpost just moved 17 times. And every time fact checkers make a mistake, or the WHO makes a mistake, or the CDC makes a mistake, or Biden or Rochelle Walensky makes a mistake, somehow the mistakes are always in favor of big government tyranny, big pharma, and big tech censorship. Isn't that weird? I've never seen them make a mistake and say that the vaccine is worse than it really is. Like, somehow all their mistakes go in favor of their narrative. So odd, so strange. And then you can't question it. But we know what they're doing. And pray for these sickos, tarnished souls, because, the fact checkers and the social media networks played a massive role in the social engineering and manipulation that allowed the government, big tech companies, and big pharma to treat us like slaves, peasants, and serfs for so long. And that collateral damage is real. And you guys will feel it in your soul, because that's just how the world works, and you got to stop hurting people. If you hold the door open for someone, it feels nice. You buy them a cup of coffee, you have a conversation. It's just human nature. Most humans mean to do well to each other, So I know you guys have a good person somewhere in there, but the more damage you keep causing, it would be like you slamming doors in people's faces all the time. Like, you can't, unless you're like literally a demon, eventually you're going to feel it and be like, maybe I should hold this open instead of slamming it in their face. So think about what you guys are doing with the censorship, because it's just plain wrong. We'll see where they go, but we need to get rid of all these restrictions, and scientifically, they don't even make sense. Oh, we're going to force test only the unvaccinated. Excuse me, boss, but don't vaccinated people also get and spread the virus according to the science? Well, yes, they do. There's millions of fully vaccinated people who've gotten sick multiple times. Okay, so then why wouldn't you test them as well, since they also get sick, if that's the logic? Well, our logic doesn't really make scientific sense. Just shut up and get it, or you're going to get fired. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It's so obvious. The smartest scientists on the planet would be like, well, yeah, if you're trying to stop the spread and you don't want people who are test positive to come into work, then you have to test the vaccinated too, because they can also test positive. So if that's truly your logic, if you test positive, you could spread it, so everybody has to, you would be testing the unvaccinated. These people don't care. It's so obvious. And if they're going to do this, who knows what else they do. So we need to really not forget that still nurses are suffering. People are still losing their jobs. Someone just texted me the other day and said, my wife, I'm not going to say where, works for this organization, this news organization, and they're trying to do forced masking again. It's like the lingering is just too much. All right, I want to read these two stories because they're pretty interesting. This is an MSNBC story about racist roads. Biden administration announces first major step to fight America's racist roads. I thought it was a parody because it's so stupid, but I'm like, all right, what does it mean to be a racist road, and what is the Biden administration doing about it? Let's read the article. MSNBC, folks. The Biden administration is capping off the president's recent trip to Michigan, focused largely on working rights and transportation innovation by handing out its first federal grant to dismantle a highway built to perpetuate racial discrimination. The move is part of the Biden administration's broader effort to remake America's infrastructure to be more equitable, including addressing racist roads that were designed to facilitate white flight and deprive black communities of housing and commercial opportunities. So roads are racist, and this is typical Democrat, typical 2022 America. We're remaking America's infrastructure by destroying a road that's being built. Perfect. That's just typical left-wing ideology now. We're creating by destroying. We're building by removing. We're innovating infrastructure by taking away a road. How does that even work? Like, what are you going to trap white people in a black neighborhood or something? It's like, white flight, get rid of the road. It's like, is it 1930s or something? Are they going to have to go off-roading or something with a mountain bike or ATV? Like, are white people now stuck? I would have to look into it, but I highly doubt it's the only road out of town or something. So I've never heard of something like this, but we'll see. I know in Beverly Hills, they didn't want a train station, and people were saying that that could be racist or whatever, but Beverly Hills didn't want a train station because a bunch of transients and crackheads. I mean, I used to take the train to work. You know, I was broke. I didn't have a car. There's some unsavory characters on the train. I mean, it can get pretty creepy sometimes. It's not like New York City used to be. LA Metro has always been weird. But anyway, you know, they didn't want it in Beverly Hills because they're like, we don't want all this crime and weirdos coming, like having easy access to Beverly Hills. So I've heard the analogy of like, don't build the road or don't build the tunnel or don't build the train because we don't want people coming there. But I've never heard the road is racist, and if we remove the road, that'll help black people. It's like, if white people are leaving with that road, don't black people also have cars? Wouldn't they also use that road? Like, I'm not going to call them racist because I think that word is overplayed and unnecessary, but it's like, this is the Democrats. Oh, you know, white people want to leave this area, so we're going to get rid of a road. And then like black workers and businessmen are like, you know, we also have cars and we want to use that road also. It's going to be more convenient for us. Oh no, calm down, black person. I'm Pete Buttigieg. I'll tell you what to do, okay? It's a racist road. Roads aren't racist, bro. Everybody who has a car uses a road. If it's a good road, it's a good road. If it's not, it's not. But this idea that they're trying to stop white flight by removing a road, I mean, guys, I don't even like most Republicans. I think a lot of them are like borderline useless, but if you're still voting Democrat, there's something wrong with you. These people will destroy this whole country so fast. I listen to Joe Biden. They're talking about inflation. It's a game to him. I don't have the clip, but he's like, oh, you know, they're like, it's 8-point inflation. It's the highest it's been in 40 years. He's like, oh, it's not that bad. It's only up 0.2, 0.3. And they're like, yeah, but that's month over month, but year over year, it's terrible. And like, he doesn't give a crap. He doesn't care how much you pay in gas. Like, it's all like, oh, does it make me look good? And I get it. Republicans do that a little too, but why would you vote for Democrats? Destroying roads? What? I mean, I don't know. Let me know what you think about that, but getting rid of a road because of white flight. Yeah, I'm sure no black people were going to drive on that road, only white people. My gosh, dude, they're so stupid. Yeah, and they can't, you know, they always say, oh, we can't have identification in voting because they don't have an ID. Black people, you know, in inner cities can't afford an ID. Then get them an ID. You guys spent $18 billion on Big Pharma. Here's a crazy idea. How much would it cost to get every person in America that didn't have an ID, regardless of color? I bet you it costs less than $18 billion, but, oh, you have money to give it to Zelensky in Ukraine. You give him $60 billion, $50 billion, whatever. You give, you know, tens of billions of dollars to Big Pharma. You print trillions of dollars, but why not print it? I'm fine with you, you know, giving everybody an ID in America. That sounds like a decent spend of money. Oh, you don't want to do that because you don't actually want people to have IDs to vote because then you don't have your little boogeyman. Some people need the victim card. You know, different communities do that. They do it in politics. You need that in order to push your agenda. Once you solve the problem, now the problem's not there and you can't point to it anymore. It's like, you know, Al Sharpton, what would that guy do if everybody got along? It's like he needs a story. Something happens between two races, Al Sharpton pops up like a Pokemon. You know what I'm saying? He pops up in the back. Yeah, I got you. And people are like, dude, who even invited you? You know what I'm saying? Like, his whole career goes away if people start getting along. So at a certain point, you have to ask the question is like, do Democrats really want to solve the problem of, you know, poor people not having IDs? Or do they want to use that so they can never allow people to show IDs for their elections? I mean, it doesn't cost that much to get everybody who doesn't have an ID, because I would guess most Americans do have an ID, so you don't have to print out 300 million of them. Such a joke. Speaking of a joke, this is The Atlantic. This is supposed to be like one of the smartest blogs, you know? Separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. Though school sports are typically sex segregated, a new generation of kids isn't content to compete with traditional structures. Maggie Mertens. I'm sure she's quite the athlete, Maggie. I don't know. Let's read this article. Why not, folks? The Atlantic. Shira Mondelezis fell in love with flag football while playing on her middle school team. An avid snowboarder and all-around athletic kid, she loved the energy and she felt while on the field, and the camaraderie engendered by the intensely physical game. So last summer, heading into her junior year at Riverdale County School in the Bronx, Mondelezis decided to sign up for football. she would be the only girl, but it was a no-cut, no-tryout team, so she figured the worst she'd have to deal with what would be not feeling welcome to the team. Instead, soon after she'd fill out the enrollment form, Riverdale's athletic director reached out to Mandolese about specific requirements she would have in order to join the team. Because Mandolese was a girl trying to join a boys' sport, she had to abide by a set of mixed-gender sports regulations that the New York State Education Department passed in 1985. I mean, why not just identify as non-binary? I mean, why even choose a gender at that point? You know, just feel loose so you can get tackled or something in flag football or flagged. These rules, which were developed in part to protect girls from harm during competitions, required that Mandolese submit a record of her past performance in physical education classes, a doctor's physical, blah, 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 whatever. I don't feel like reading the rest of it, but I guess because this girl wanted to play flag football, we should just get rid of genders in sports. I don't even care anymore. Why not? Why not? I mean, the NBA, if women could play, would look exactly the same. Wow. That would be the same league because I don't think a single woman would be able to make it. The WNBA would be filled with men, so you'd just be erasing women's sports. At this point, I'm fine with it because, you know, at the end of the day, I think women's sports are interesting in certain areas, just being honest. MMA, women's MMA is interesting. Mixed martial arts, you know, there's some female fights that they headline and they sell more tickets than men just because they've built a name for themselves and they're good. You know, there's a few others, but basketball just doesn't really translate. I love basketball, but women are boring to watch in basketball, not so boring to watch in fighting. So, you know, in a competitive world, I think if they made no genders, first of all, MMA should keep it because if they did that, women would just get their asses kicked. But in other sports, it would just eliminate women's sports completely. And, no, you know, maybe that's the free market at hand. Maybe people don't want to watch most women's sports. I don't know. Maybe tennis would still do well. Women's tennis seems to be popular when the Williams sisters are in it. I don't know. But at this point, I'm done running circles around these dummies. It's like, get rid of racist roads. Get rid of sport. Like, it's parody level stuff. And here's what I'll say. I don't think it's that popular. I really don't. When I see these people say stuff like this, they just get ratioed by conservatives all the time. Conservatives always make them look dumb, and there's not a lot of people defending them. You know, there's not that many people like, oh, that makes total sense. It's like these deranged, probably depressed, probably a mess, you know, left-wing journalists who probably have some sort of Ivy League degree and, you know, do all this stuff. They're probably like, oh, yeah, this makes total sense. And, you know, they write it, and 95% of the country is like, no, it doesn't. Because it's like going to Harvard nowadays doesn't translate to you being a genius. It just means you're like, you know, you have this like elite weirdo education that brainwashes you and makes you like non-functional. I want to show you a tweet that I read from Matt Walsh. He responded to some person. Some guy or woman, I'm not sure because it has the transgender like thing in the bio. It's got the gay flag, the transgender flag. Jack, I would assume is a man, but I don't want to misgender this, you know, human being because he/she/it might cry. But Jack said on Twitter, 4 years at Harvard, 5 years at Yale, 3 more years at Harvard, 2 years at Stanford. But Karen 02938464737262 has some thoughts about sex chromosomes. So this guy's laughing and he's like, these Karens are trying to question my knowledge on gender. I mean, I went to Ivy League school for almost a decade. And Matt Walsh responds, you spent almost 15 years in Ivy League schools and still know less about biology than my 5-year-olds. This is not something you should be bragging about, Jack. I mean, what does that say about an Ivy League school? If this guy spent 4 years at Harvard, 5 years at Yale, 3 more years at Harvard, and 2 years at Stanford, almost 15 years at Ivy League schools, and he thinks Karens are wrong about gender, you know, because you think there's 2 genders, or, you know, he's transitioning and wants to define as a different gender. Like, this is psychologically just fascinating stuff. It's like, I don't even know what to think of it. Like almost 15 years in school, and you're coming out like that. It makes me realize that you're better off just getting an education on YouTube or listening to podcasts, because if that's what 15 years of Ivy League school looks like, I'm not sure that it makes you smart, honestly. Wild stuff. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to stay for under 10 minutes, keep this under 45 minutes, and I want to get some of your opinions. I'm going to scroll up, try to get some stuff, and that's what it is. Let me know what you think about the Biden thing, him saying the pandemic is over. Let me know what you think about the Taiwan thing. Let me know what you think about him talking about inflation. Let me know what you think about Thomas Massey or DeSantis' response. Also, let me know what you think about the men playing women's sports article in Atlantic or the racist roads and Pete Buttigieg. Any of those, I'll try to put a few of your stuff on the screen. Doing all right? I'm great. Thank you. Let's see. Tina said, God bless you as always. Thank you, Tina Truth Seeker. I appreciate you. Someone said, a bought education does not mean you're intellectual. Absolutely. Education does not translate to intellect because, and I'm not saying it's not good to be educated. Reading is good. Being able to do math, critical thinking. Education is amazing, but nowadays they're doing more indoctrination than education, and it's like obedience. A lot of school is like, follow the rules, listen to this. And you see what happens in science. If you're a scientist and you're a genius and you're smarter than most scientists, you get demonized because you're disagreeing with the majority. Well, nobody great. This is the most communist way of thinking. It's like, well, Michael Jordan is better than the other players, so 99% of the basketball community does otherwise. Well, that's why they'll never be Michael Jordan or LeBron James. That's why, they'll never put up numbers like Will Chamberlain. It's like it's the humanity and greatness is not about agreeing with the 99%, especially in America when we're supposed to be based off of liberty principles. It's all about being, an individual. I mean, of course, you're a collective to some extent, but being, able to be great, being able to innovate, being able to be different. There, like any person that agrees with the 99% has never been great. Think of a great artist, musician, painter, inventor, politician. I mean, what makes them great is the fact that they weren't like everyone else. And you even see it with, Trump. I don't know to what extent this is staged or real. I'm guessing it's mostly real, but the people hate Trump because he's everything they never were. Like, they're all a bunch of boring lames, and he comes in and has a little bit of swag, and now all of a sudden they're all mad at him because it's like, it's not supposed to be like, well, all the losers say that you're too much because we're losers. It's like, cool, that's fine. Then you get to compete, and if you lose, you lose. Sorry, that's just how the world works. Ryan said, we don't have a legal treaty to protect Taiwan, but we do have a legal treaty to protect Japan. Will China stop at Taiwan, assuming we uphold the treaty? I don't think America cares about our treaties very much. I mean, maybe we do, but something tells me that we don't care about treaties. Someone said anomaly is batshit crazy. LOL. LOL. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. I'm going crazy, Dr. Mordecai. Please save me. Maybe there's some pharmacy pills you have that'll make me a good boy again, so I listen to the media. Thanks for your opinion, bro. Someone said, how can roads be racist when they are black? It's a good question. It's because they're black conservatives. So, black conservatives can still be racist. And, 60 Minutes did an interview with a road, and it's black, but it doesn't vote for Joe Biden. So even though it's just a road and it doesn't vote at all, the fact that the road doesn't vote for Joe Biden means it still can be racist, because you ain't black, Jack, unless you vote for, the senile pudding eating, a senile guy. But it's just so, Democrats are so demoralizing. They're like, we want you black people to be able to use your body however you want. And like a black person's like, can I play basketball at the arena? And they're like, no, because you need a big pharma injection. They're like, but we've had in the past things like the Tuskegee experiment where, the government kind of like experimented on black people. So we're like a little suspicious, maybe more than other races, on big pharma injections. They're like, well, we don't care. You get fired. If you're a nurse or a teacher or a basketball player, you can't play if you don't get the big pharma injection. So it's like, but if I'm black and you want me to have bodily freedom, then why won't you let me do my job without a big pharmacy mRNA injection in my arm? It's like, Oh, well, we don't like what freedom do I have then? Like, oh, you have the freedom to abort your kid, which would grow up and be another black person in America. So if you abort and kill that thing that won't grow up to be another black person, then you have the freedom of choice, but not for the big pharma. So it's like, how do people still fall for the Democrats? You have the freedom to abort your would-be black kid turned into black adult in the Democratic Party. That's your freedom, to take what is going to be a black kid and destroy it. You don't have bodily freedom to opt out of an mRNA injection. Do you think these people have your best intentions, even if you are pro-choice? Like, do people really think that that's what they're doing? They're not. But it's so obvious. Like, roads are racist. So you're suggesting that there's not going to be thousands of black people that use that road to go in and out of the place as well, and perhaps do business, drive a truck, like, you know, start a LLC and use those roads? No, it's only going to be white people on those roads running away from the black people. Are people this stupid in this country? Are people this dumb and brainwashed? Like, how are these people getting elected? Why are people still falling for it? I don't know. Someone said, with a super chat, Laughing Dog said, Trump and his advisors are pro big pharma and red flag. He's out unless he 180s and fires everyone who advises him. I mean, I think he could still run again, though. That's the thing. I don't think Republicans often have to learn a lesson because they just convince people that they're not the other side. That's the big scheme. Well, I'm going to vote for Democrat because they're not Republicans, and I hate the Republicans. I hate Mitch McConnell. I'll vote for the Democrat. Well, I hate Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, so I'll vote for Trump. I'll give him another chance, even though he was in on it in 2020, but at least he didn't mandate it. You know, that's kind of the game. They just run people back and forth. So until people stand up to their own party and be like, yes, you're better than them, but I'm not letting you get away with this. Like, you know, I want to boo Ted Cruz so bad, not because I think he's the worst, but, you know, he was pro-vaccination segregation in 2021. Like, it's like, no, you know, you're not getting clapped. You're not getting cheered for if I'm around, but everybody cheers for him, so they just keep doing it. Is Mike Pence considered a Republican? For sure. He's as Republican as Republicans come. Yeah, he's not a Democrat. He's a Christian, conservative, you know, Republican. And this is, I think, what people need to face is like, oh, it's just the rhinos. It's like, no, the Republican, it's not like every bad Republican's a Democrat. Mitt Romney might as well be pretty much a Democrat, but a lot of other Republicans, they're just Republicans, and Republicans aren't good. You know, they're not what Trump pretends like they're going to be. Like, oh, if you just give me 4 more years, I'll show everybody. There's changes happening, but for the most part, Mike Pence is a Republican. And, you know, as much as people want to play the victim about Mike Pence, he was chosen by Donald Trump. So it's like, in my opinion, it's just getting old playing Tom and Jerry with Trump. It's like, oh my God, he's going to save us, but he just can't make good decisions. I mean, oh, why isn't Mike Pence been investigated? It's like, I don't know, but why did Trump pick him if that's who you think he is? Like, why do you keep begging for the guy back who constantly hires people that aren't loyal to him or don't like? I don't know. It's like, it's getting old. I'm totally broken from that narrative. I'm creating my own narrative. I'm trying to get Republicans to be, I'm not even going to say on the offense, but create your own narrative. Republicans are always responding to the left. That's all they're doing. Make your own narrative. You know, I think Matt Walsh is a good example of that. I don't follow everything he does, but it's like he's created his own narrative. He's pushing it. He's having a lot of success. It's because he's not just playing catch up all the time. You know, it's time for people to just say what's true, be raw about it, and figure out a way to do something. Someone said Mike Pence is a rhino. I mean, I hear you. I guess in one way I get the word rhino, but it's almost like a cope. Like if they're a bad Republican, they must not be a Republican. It's like, who told you the Republican Party was your best friend? Like, George Bush was a Republican, you know, George Bush Sr. was a Republican, Mitt Romney's a Republican. You can call them rhinos, whatever you want to classify them as, but the whole party is pretty much a rhino, which means the whole party, that's just who they are. They're not Democrats in disguise. They're just, most of them are just controlled opposition losers. So that's my strategy. People don't like it, but confront your party, confront Trump, confront these people. Don't play this game of like, oh, it's just him, but not him. And it's like, it's all of them. They're all hanging out. All these people that you hate so much are on stage at a Trump rally like in a month. So, at what point do you stop pretending like these new guys are fighting the old guys and just call them all out, just group them all together and be like, the whole party is in on it, with the exception of like Thomas Massie. I truly think that Thomas Massie is among maybe 5 to 7 people who actually cares about America and is willing to vote for what's right over what's popular. I don't think Trump is that person at all. In fact, Trump tried to kick Thomas Massie out of the party when Thomas Massie told the truth about the lockdown. So until people start treating Trump like a rhino, the whole party's bunk. It's all a joke. It's just a hang out, buy a Trump sweater, cheer and get locked down. Nothing's going to change. Thomas Massie is one of the good guys, and Trump tried to kick him out of the party for telling the truth in March to the public that the CARES Act and the lockdown was going to be the biggest mistake ever, which it was. So that's the Republican Party. It's like a personality. Well, we like your personality, but I don't know. We'll see. Someone said, Trump upsets me with some of the people he supports. He makes bad decisions. Here's what I'm going to say, because I know people are tired of it. I've said it a lot. Just challenge Donald Trump. Like, the Republican Party, in my opinion, is going nowhere. Never. Nowhere. If people say, it's only the rhinos, but not Trump. I mean, he hires Mike Pence. I hate Mike Pence, but I'm not going to question the fact that he put Mike Pence there and picked Mike Pence as Surgeon General and hangs out with Jared Kushner and put John Bolton in. All of that is just a mistake. I mean, Trump is just this innocent baby. I'm going to treat him like a baby with a binky in his mouth. It's like, no, treat Trump like Mitch McConnell. Treat Trump like Mike Pence. If you don't like Mike Pence, ask Trump why he put him there. Until Republican voters and Trump people challenge Trump like they do the rest of the party, it's all fake. It's all going nowhere. It's going to be a big circus where nothing happens. People got to challenge Trump. It has to happen. I've been saying it for 3 years, but until that happens, it's just a joke. It's just a hangout. It's a hangout where you get to meet people that are cool and have similar interests, and then you can all speculate in 4 years when you go to the next hangout why nothing actually got done. And instead of making America great again, you ended in a lockdown where your guy ended up selling vaccines for Moderna and the government. Like, it's so clear at this point. It's almost like with liberals, I'm not trying to say I don't want to talk to them, because I like on an individual basis, I'll talk to people, have conversations, but it's like, if you don't get it at this point and you're still voting for the Democrats and you're still like, you keep getting duped by left-wing ideology. If you're in your 20s, I get it. But if you're like a 40-year-old man and you're voting Democrat, if you don't get it at this point, bro, you're almost a lost cause. I'm moving on to more important pastures, because, some people are just a lost cause. That's almost how I feel about people who don't get what I'm saying about Trump at this point. It's like, I'm not, I understand that at a certain point you'll figure it out, but it's like, it's a lost cause. If you don't see the writing on the wall that you need to challenge this guy, and at bare minimum treat him like he is a Republican, so, hold his feet to the fire, metaphorically, then, it's like, I got to move on to other things. If people don't get that in this movement, then it's a bunk movie. You got tens of millions of people running in circles doing nothing. It's time for me to focus on other things, physical, health, food industry stuff, big pharma, obviously. Like, this is stuff I'm interested in. I'm just not interested in the Republican Party anymore. Even though I vote for them, I'm voting all Republican in November. It's like, as far as the culture of where Republicans are, it's turned into this like goo goo gaga, let's just baby Donald Trump and pretend like he's going to do something if he comes back. So I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm not going to talk about it all the time. I'm just moving on. I got other ambition, other goals. And, it's like Democrats. If they're going to hang out and talk about how great, women playing men's sports would be, I'm not going to be there. I got bigger fish to fry. Someone said on 60 Minutes, I wonder what Biden meant when he said he'd have to fix the election system before he ran for president again. I didn't hear that, but I'm not surprised. Definitely double standards. He could say whatever he wants about the election. Let's see. Someone said, Kristen said the country will not get better until people start demanding their party do better rather than continuing to demonize the opposing party, saying we're better than them. Nailed it. Kristen, nailed it. And that's all politics is right now. I mean, you gotta really feel it, that we're stuck in a loop, right? Like, I don't feel like we're progressing as a country. I don't feel like we're progressing as a party. I don't feel like culturally, like I mean, I'm trying to do my best, but it's like we're like stuck in a loop. It's like we got all this technology and it's enslaving us, right? It's not like, 2000, all this new technology, we're building iPhones, iPad, like everything's getting cooler and better. Nothing's advancing anymore. Like we're stuck in this technology loop where we're just feeding the algorithms, staring at Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and everybody's stuck. We're stuck as a nation. We're stuck. We're stuck with the technology loop. We're stuck in the algorithm. We're stuck politically. I'm trying to break it up because I don't feel like we're progressing at all. And I think that's the main psychological reason. Among all the technology that's enslaving us, I think it's also freeing us in a way. It's like a mixed bag, it's like pros and cons. It's the yin and the yang. But, in one way, the phone has freed me from having to work for someone else, and I'm so grateful. In another hand, it's sucked me into its vortex, and I'm like, I can't get out. So it's like the phone I'm grateful, but it's also becoming a curse in a little bit. But anyway, people on the left have gotten so bad because they just hate Republicans. And a lot of Republicans are getting sloppy and lazy and useless because they just hate the Democrats. And it's like, that is the scheme for sure. Like, oh, well, I mean, I don't like Joe Biden, but I mean, at least he'll let me abort my kid or something. And then it's like, well, I don't like, I mean, I don't agree with Trump, but at least he didn't mandate it. It's like, it becomes this thing of like, well, and nobody challenges their side. It's very bizarre to me. It's very bizarre. And I would say on the Republican side, people do challenge Republicans, but they don't challenge Trump. It's like, oh, we can challenge, Mitt Romney, but, Ted Cruz is going to get an applaud. We could challenge, Meghan McCain. Good, do it. But Donald Trump, don't question him. So it's like it's become this little culty, like, oh, we're gonna only question the really crappy Republicans that are pretty much Democrats. Like, but not my guy, but not Rick Scott, not Donald Trump. I mean, we could question Dan Crenshaw, but he'll still somehow keep getting elected, But not Trump, but Mike Pence, his vice president, but not the guy who hired him. It's like it's becoming a useless movement until Republicans are close. They're challenging a lot of people, but it's only like we're caught in a loop. Like, just challenge, like, what's her name? The lady was McCain, Cindy McCain. What is it? What's her name? Or Cheney, Liz Cheney. It's like, yeah, Liz Cheney sucks. Okay, Liz Cheney's a phony. She's definitely like a dual party. But this is the matrix they got you caught in. It's like, well, I'm gonna challenge her, so I must be right because she's bad. It's like, she sucks. But what if there's like layers of suckage? You know what I'm saying? It's like, the bottom layer of suckage is like Joe Biden. And then you have like Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney. And you get up and like by the time you get to your person, like they suck hard too. But it's like, they don't suck as much as Liz Cheney. So it's like we just give them a pass or something because they didn't mandate things. I don't know. I see right through it. So I'm not going to complain about it. I'm just focusing on other stuff. Music, cultural stuff. I'm really interested in, obviously, Big Pharma. I will never stop telling you the truth about them. The food industry, I'm fascinated by the fact that neither party cares and the national consciousness is like non-existent. It's growing on Instagram and stuff. There's like sub-trad categories that get it, but for the most part, nobody cares that a lot of our food is illegal in other countries. They make raw milk illegal, and food dyes that are known to cause, issues are legal. Like we're getting poisoned in this country. I mean, we're getting absolutely like metaphorically raped by these industries, by big pharma, by big agriculture, and no one seems to care because the Democrats think it's good to get all your shots, and if you question big pharma, you're bad. The Republicans just are so far, head is so far up Trump's rear that it's like, well, he didn't mandate it. It's like, I'm not talking about mandates right now. Mandates suck. We are talking about it at the beginning of the segment, but just because he didn't mandate it doesn't mean it's a good idea to give $20 million or $20 billion to big pharma. Just because he didn't mandate it doesn't mean he's going to do anything about the FDA. He's making them worse. He's like, I'm rushing them to get vaccines out faster. That means you're evil, and you're even more evil than them, which is crazy because I thought you were less evil. Like, but people don't get it. It's like that's what I'm working on for sure. Is like, I'm working on issues that make sense, and I'm not waiting for Trump or DeSantis or really anybody, obviously not Biden or Gavin Newsom, but I'm not waiting for someone's approval. I'm not following the narrative of like, oh, well, here's the story of the day. You have to talk about this in the most basic way. That's most Democrats and Republicans. enslaved by the algorithm, because it's like, here's the story of the day. I'm a Democrat and I disagree with Donald Trump and I think Republicans are fascists. And then it's like, well, I'm a Republican and I think Liz Cheney sucks. And, and people are enslaved by the algorithm, because it's like, envision like little puppet masters and like, yes, little dummies, keep fighting about things that don't matter. And it's like, every day people are enslaved by the algorithm. Here's the story. Here's the red meat. And I can already predict what 95% of conservative influencers are going to say about it before they even say it. I already know their segment. I already know where they're going with it. There's going to be no innovation, nothing captivating, nothing, creative, nothing that's going to, it's just like, here's the red meat. Here's what the Democrats are going to say. Here's what the Republicans are saying. So I'm not saying to not cover topics because they're important, but try to weave in things that actually matter versus like just selling MAGA merch and just like throwing red meat to your base, because that's not going to shift the scales of what's going on. So, that's how I see it, at least. It's like I'm trying to crack out of the algorithm, even in my own life. It's like, if you've ever seen The Truman Show, sometimes it just feels like that, where you do the same thing all the time. And I know the pandemic really screwed up a lot of people's like travel and, just like plans, but it's like, I gotta even switch up my own life sometimes, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to edit. I'm going to film. I'm going to put it out. And I'm grateful. I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, but sometimes you just got to switch it up, just to know you're alive. You're like, all right, instead of walking that way, I'm a fake out the algorithm. You know what I'm saying? Usually I'm like, go like this. I got to just hit them with one of these moves just so they know I'm not so predictable, Some people got that. Someone said, so the riots were Trump's fault too? I mean, who even said that? I don't even know. I would say no. The riots were not Trump's fault, but also I think he was afraid to actually like send National Guard in some cases. But no, I wouldn't say the riots were his fault. I don't even know. Like, what are you even talking about? I don't know. Like, I'm not even talking about the riots, but some people spiral when I just say something. I'm like, hey, let's talk about like the food quality in America and big pharma and how neither party's really doing enough. And it's like, so everything's his fault? Are you a Democrat? Are you, and it's like, yo, come on, guys. Everything doesn't have to revolve around, Trump all the time. I wasn't even talking about the riots. Would I say they were his fault? No. I would say he had very little to do with them at all. I don't think they really had. I mean, his response as the president could be debated, but I get both sides of why he would respond certain ways, and I don't even know what he would have been able to do about it, So no, but why? I'm not trying to be rude, but like, why is that the first thing that comes to your head? It's just like, oh my gosh, doink, 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 doink. My algorithm's been screwed up. I've consumed 5,000 pieces of content where everything is about Donald Trump and how great he is. So if somebody mentions something that has nothing to do with them, I just default to 5 things in my head, and I assume that you're attacking him on something that you didn't even mention, because that's just all I know. It's like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but people are enslaved by the algorithm. That's what I'm talking about. It's just like process it. It's like when a Democrat said to me, like, Joe Biden never said the shots weren't going to spread. Like the shots, like he never said that. And then you show them the clip of him saying that, and they're like, oh no. Like, it's like you see the fear in their eyes. Like, they're like, malfunction, warning, NPC meltdown. You have just seen a clip that, destroys your echo chamber, and now all of your views don't make as much sense as they did 3 minutes ago. And like, and they're, it sounds like an AOL dial-up from the 90s, and they're like, you're a fascist. And they're like, oh my gosh, that was so close. I almost listened to the truth for a second, but then I remembered every Republican's a fascist, and I solved that problem. Back to Joe Biden and Dash Dabrowski's, like Twitter feed. It's like, people like have like a short circuit where I remember this was years ago, but I went on like a date in LA. I mean, gosh, it was like 7 years ago, maybe more, maybe less. And she was like, what do you think of Donald Trump? And I was like, I think he's not as bad as the media says he is. Like, I simplified it because I didn't feel like getting in an argument on the first. But I'm like, I think he's not as bad as they say he is, which I still believe, And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't think this is gonna work out. I'm like, you don't think? I mean, it's fine because it's not, obviously, but I'm like, you don't think it's gonna work out? I didn't even say I have a MAGA hat at home and I'm like a fanatic. I literally dumbed it down as much as possible just to see how she'd respond, and it was like, it was like, oh, this is not gonna work. It's not gonna work because I think he's not as bad as the media says, which is almost a fact because how they talk. But it's like, if you love the media, it's like, well, this isn't going to work out very much. It's like, dang, I didn't really care, but I was like, that's crazy. Like if someone said, I'm like, what do you think of Donald Trump? It's like, I like him more than the media, or I slightly like him less than other people, but I'm not going to be like, oh, this is the end. It's like, I'll be like, why do you feel that way? I'm just curious. Maybe I'm, whatever. All right, I'm going to try to end this before an hour. Appreciate you guys.